Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about the Tides of Torment DLC. And what I want to do in this video is go over in greater detail about what Creative Assembly has revealed with regards to the DLC. Now, we are going to get information over the next couple of weeks about all of the Legendary Lords and the various races, but I think it is useful to go over what they have shown so far, because there's actually quite a few details in that teaser and on the Steam pages. So let's start with Slaanesh. So if we look at this portion of the teaser, we can actually see the devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows. They have 30 armor, pretty decent leadership, pretty good melee attack and melee defense stats, though there's only 80 entities. The crossbow version has 130 range, 22 missile strength with armor piercing. Now, in this video, in this portion of the video, this is a skirmish battle. You can tell because Dechala is level 6, the Caphaean Lord is level 6. That's the northern provinces. I'm guessing they're just trying to show that Dechala is going to be fighting Caphae in her campaign. How exactly she'll handle that, either she's going to have a hard time or she's going to steamroll over them. For the record, it's a lot harder for Slaaneshi factions to deal with High Elves than it is with Caphae, just because of the unit-roster situation for Caphae. But yeah, in this, you have Dechala herself, the Legendary Lord there at the bottom, right here. So we can see, like, these are Slangors, I think, in this portion. And then we have probably regular devotees of Slaanesh right there. So I imagine they might just be the same as the ones with crossbows, just without the range capability. And then you have champions of Slaanesh, I think, probably right there next to them. And that the last one might be a Praeton. Now, if we unpause this for a second, we can actually get a look at Decala's stats. So she's got 15 armor, which is normal for Slaaneshi factions. The physical resistance will be the big question. The odd resolve situation will be the big question. Keep in mind, Creative Assembly has stated that they're working on improving odd resolve. So maybe physical resistance should count more CA, as opposed to just, you know, armor, melee stats, etc. But she's got magical attacks, armor piercing, anti-infantry, devastating flanker by the looks of it. Specifically, this icon right here. That is devastating flanker. And then she's got this ability, Whirlwind of Pleasure, which does a lot of damage per second for a couple of seconds around her, armor piercing damage, but she can't move while doing it. So throw Dechala into the middle of an enemy blob and just unleash Dechala. How exactly will we gain this ability during the course of a campaign? Unclear, right? She also has an ability in the lower left corner there with several usage, with limited usage. So this seems, this one has a cooldown of 120 seconds. So 2 minutes cooldown. Realistically, you're probably only going to use it, let's say 2, maybe 3 times a battle, if even that. But yeah, this is what we see. She also, of course, has Siege Attacker right there. So that's what we're seeing. We don't see details on the Slangors. We don't see details on the Praeton, what stats they have, or on the legendary hero of Slaanesh. Now, looking at the Steam page, what Creative Assembly mentions right here is that she starts in the hidden landing of the Caphaean hinterlands. Now, the thing about the hidden landing is that it's port settlement in that new province they added in Caphae with the addition of Omens of Destruction. So I'm guessing they're not going to expand the map further right there. Now, the problem with that specific province is that you've got jungle, and the way navigation in jungle happens is not exactly great. Honestly, I don't really like any jungle area in the campaign right now. I think all of them have a negative impact on the campaigns themselves. Like, you have various climate types that can have a negative impact. So you look at mountains, they can slow you down. You look at Cast Wasteland, that can hurt you. But I think jungle is genuinely the worst in a campaign area. So hopefully that doesn't affect her too much. And of course, the issue with Slaanesh is how are we going to handle vassals? Because there's a lot of things that undermine Slaaneshi campaigns because of the vassal situation. But anyway, so she can take capture settlements and make them thrall camps, tormentor holds, or pleasure palaces. Now, the way I'm reading this is like you've got a similar system to the Kastorf economy. Now, the Kastorf economy is great, except for the practical implementation of it. See, the problem of the Kastorf system is balance, pacing. So you start with very limited resources early on in a campaign, and then you get a lot as you progress through it. And this is a problem if you actually play a campaign the way the vast majority of people do. See, the vast majority of people play a campaign and finish it by turn 50 to 80. And that's what poll after poll has indicated on my channel. That's what Creative Assembly themselves have stated, I would like to add. So I hope that they are doing the pacing here better. But based on this, so you will use some form of labor, slaves, in this case thralls, to generate resources. And in Tormentor Hold, you're going to use it for, I imagine, basic recruitment right there. Maybe some economic options right there, infrastructure and defense. And then Pleasure Palaces, major settlement options, requiring thralls for but granting advanced recruitment economy buildings. Now, that's basically not Dark Fortresses, Cast Dwarf towers. So similar idea. Again, we do have to ask the question, how is it actually going to play out? How is it going to be balanced? Because Creative Assembly can have a lot of great ideas, but it's the implementation, balancing of those ideas that really does matter from my view. And we're going to find out about Dechala later on from Creative Assembly. Now, what she has in terms of a unique mechanic, her actions raise decadence, expanding pleasure palaces, unlocking powers, benefits, Slaaneshi boons, corruption of any units before battle. Corruption, interesting, that selection. Demonic attraction for instantly recruitable demons. She may also sacrifice thralls for the praise of Slaanesh. An area damage ability, summoning an enhanced spawn of Slaanesh. Okay, an enhanced spawn of Slaanesh. Who exactly wants to use spawn of chaos? Good question. And then her Tormentor tributes, she gets powerful rewards, unique ancillaries, rituals with campaign benefits. So, based on this description, my read on Dechala is that she's kind of like this weird mix of tic-tac-toe in terms of like some of these like unique ancillaries, rituals, and cast dwarfs. Okay, well, find out if that works. But for the record, and not tic-tac-toe, 10-1. Okay, so how exactly that will work remains to be seen. Can have some issues. Then you've got Dechala, Castle Sorcerer, Lord of Slaanesh, Riker as a legendary hero, Druki anointed as a hero, and Exalted Hero of Slaanesh. Now, I'm guessing Exalted Hero of Slaanesh was not necessarily difficult, and I think that's more of a benefit for Warriors of Chaos. For the record, Slaanesh already has tons of heroes options right now. Hopefully, the Druki anointed will give casualty replenishment for Slaanesh, because that's one of the things that Slaanesh is lacking right now. Then you get Pleasure Seekers, Devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows, Champions of Slaanesh for monstrous infantry, and Slangors, as well as a Praeton, and then Regiments Renown. Now, out of Regiments Renown, I would expect that the Praeton, at the very least, will have a Regiment Renown version. I can't really remember the time they didn't do, at least for one Lord, one of those big units, a Regiment Renown version. You might say, oh, but the Thunder part doesn't have it. Yeah, it does. It's called the Spirit of Gruni. That's a Regiment Renown version of Rat. But that's for Slaanesh. Not sure how I feel about the jungle campaign. Not particularly fond of it. I think jungle in general is just... Creative Assembly needs to understand how people play their games. Not just have developers with cool ideas, but they're not necessarily doing the practical implementation of those ideas in a campaign. For the High Elves, we see this skirmish battle between Aislinn and Lokir, or Lokir's faction icon. This is a skirmish because both the lords, both Aislinn and the Dreadlord, are level 6. But what do we see right here? Well, we see a bunch of ship company as melee infantry, and based on the icon that they do have right here, they are a sword and shield infantry. We see Aislinn and what appears to be a merworm fighting a hydra right here, or a Charybdis. We see some sea elementals, I think, right there, and Lothern Skycutters, as well as a Mistmage in this specific battle. At least that's what I think they are. Now, a couple of notes right here. So obviously Merworm is a single entity, but one of the things that I do like looking at this is that the Lothern Skycutters are units with 4 entities. The reason that's important is that any kind of chariot unit, even if it is a flying unit, they struggle with more than 4 entities per unit. It's a problem with gyrocopters, for instance, ever since Thrones of Decay. It's a pathfinding issue, really. So having just 4 entities may just very well make them quite a bit more effective than even the dwarven gyrocopters. I'm guessing we have both versions, the bow version and then the bolt thrower version right there. But that's what we're seeing right here from the screen. Unsure how the ship company will actually perform in battle, but then we move on to Aislinn himself. He's got pretty solid armor, pretty good leadership, bonuses versus infantry, as well as this ability, Master of Mists, which affects allies in a 250 meter range, gives them reload skill, base missile damage, armor piercing missile damage, range. This is pretty good. And the question I have looking at this thing is, will it work on Lothern Skycutters? I mean, I imagine it would work on bolt throwers. Imagine sniping bolt throwers. Are the elves going to surpass the dwarves in terms of flying artillery pieces with bolt throwers? Especially if you can use this ability with Skycutters that have bolt throwers on them. Because 100% range on an artillery piece, even if it's not land, it's very damn significant. Yes, it only has a range. It does have a one-use charge right here for Aislinn. Might be more in a campaign. Obviously, this is a skirmish. But that could end up being very, very powerful. And he does have push and strength right here for the purpose of skirmishing. Now, on the scene page, we don't actually get a starting position for Aislinn, but they don't develop settlements traditionally. Instead, they command dragon ships, vast, self-sufficient vessels with infrastructure, economy, and military buildings, and they support nearby friendly fleets and launch major assaults. I'm getting a lot of Nakai vibes with this particular description. So Nakai doesn't take settlements, especially when you look at the follow-up, which is a Surk occupation, which is like he transfers most conquer settlements to other high elven factions, but retains limited building rights. So some variation on Nakai's mechanic. I think whether or not he will have vassals or it will just be military alliances, unclear on that subject. And then you have Asura Domination, Outpost grant knowledge that fuels upgrades for outpost colonies and dragon ships. So Nakai with a mix of Changeling, I think, mechanics, or Castorf mechanics, or, resources, unique resources. Obviously, every campaign has some unique resources. That's not just even limited to, Cast Wars or the resource system from Troy. But maybe Nakai / Cast Wars / Changeling. Hopefully in a much better way than the damn Changeling, because the Changeling actually sucks. But yeah, we get Sea Lord Aislinn, Seahelm as a Lord, Caradhran as a legendary hero, Mistmage as a hero, Ship Company as melee infantry, Sea Elemental as Oceanids, and Oceanids as monstrous infantry. So interesting they consider it monstrous infantry rather than monsters right there. Then we have Merworms as the monster, and then Flying Chariots. So good that they're considering it chariots, because they are, for the record. So are gyrocopters for all intents and purposes. Not necessarily gyro bombers, I think, but anyway. But yeah, we get a lot of Skycutters, the 2 versions, and then regiments renowned. Probably the Merworm might be, Sea Elemental Regiment renowned. Hard to say, really. I mean, it could be any of these units. So unsure on that subject. One of the things I would like to point out, though, the issue with limiting how many settlements the player has is that it means you have fewer interesting decisions to make in a campaign, because when you hold settlements, you end up having to make a lot of different decisions. Now, it doesn't have to be the same for every faction, for the record. But I'm getting vibes from both Dechala and Aislinn that, oh, you're going to hold fewer settlements, which isn't necessarily going to be a great thing. And then you got to ask the question, Confederation. Let's just say Confederation for the Changeling, and especially for Nakai, don't end up necessarily working in the best possible fashion. Because, let's say, you know, a major faction has a lot of territory, and then you confederate them, you suddenly have nothing. And it's like, it's not a great dynamic, Grave Assembly. I mean, it's cool to have an awesome idea, but how is it working within the context of the game? So, yes, I'm very skeptical. I mean, it's been a year. You don't delay a DLC for, you know, up to a year if everything has been smooth sailing with it. But we'll find out on that subject. But could be cool. I mean, I think Nakai has a lot of interesting things in his campaign. It's just, again, jungle starting position doesn't really work out. Lizardmen issues in general. Finally, last but not least, we get Sayl the Faithless. So we got to see the Dreadmaw. It has no movement speed. It has a poison attack in melee. It has a poison attack in ranged. It has armor-piercing missile damage in melee armor-piercing damage. Pretty decent level of armor. Pretty good leadership right there for the Dreadmaw. And I'm guessing the ability in the left side above its portrait is just some borrow ability. So what, are we getting dune worms on discount? Because this is obviously not the size of a dune worm, a sandworm. But anyway, we get to see what I think is the Fimir Noble and Bjork Bearstruck, as well as a lot of different things. So we got Cursed Ettins, Rune Callers, Sayl himself, and some other stuff in this one. Now, this is, again, a skirmish battle, but I think it is fairly telling that it is Sayl versus Zaytan. The expectation with Sayl is that he is going to start next to Tamarkan, specifically because of the relationship that they have in the lore. But anyway, we get to also see this screen. Now, this is the Nightmaw ability, but what's important here, I would say, is that not the abilities, but rather the magic skills that he has. So you can see that he has the Lore of Shadows passive effect. He also has the Thunderbolt. So I'm guessing he has multiple schools of magic that he can use. He's also on a chariot right here. Though if I'm not mistaken, in the lore, he was riding a mammoth. Yeah, kind of a shame when Nightmaw, you know, a lot of people just were like, it should be like Krell. Kind of that situation like Kemmler and Krell. That's a great thing. But yeah, this is a bit unfortunate, really, I think, with Nightmaw, if it's just like this kind of ability. It does some damage, but I don't think it's even that necessarily great damage. Like, it's 50 damage per second, 60% armor piercing, duration 3 seconds, radius 5 meters, movement speed 11 meters per second. Yeah, kind of iffy on that one. And also very limited range on that subject. 5-second duration, 45-second cooldown. So, poor Nightmaw. Yeah, just poor Nightmaw. But yeah, I think the screen is more revealing about who Sayl is fighting, and also this entire background of the battle. I don't know which map this is. Keep on mind, I'm not a multiplayer player and all that, but Cass Wastelands near Cafe? Probably so. The problem with that entire area of the campaign map just doesn't really work out. Like Village, Zaytan, Koleg, Tamarkan, all suffer from that starting position. Part of the problem is, of course, Grimgore. Part of the problem is the Great Bastion. Part of the problem is the design of that campaign area. On the Steam page, what it says is that he's going to be leading the Dolgans from the new 4-region province of Mountain's End, rising to power through lies and betrayal. So are we getting some kind of Changeling campaign, Snitch campaign? Hard to say. And where exactly this province will be remains to be seen. The problem I would like to highlight with adding new provinces is they should really be redesigning existing ones too. Not just expanding the map, but but building a better map in various areas of the campaign. Unlike his peers' brute force tactics, Sayl thrives on cunning and deception. Yeah, we'll find out about that one when you see some of the stuff that he gets in this DLC, but we'll get into the units in just a bit. But he uses an array of manipulations to weaken his enemies by disrupting the logistics of their armies, throwing their settlements in disarray, and even directly whispering lies that warp and sever their diplomatic ties with friends and neighbors. Even his own forces are subject to the machinations of the twisted seers of the waste in their march to victory and doom. So he's gonna start in the Chaos Waste. Like, that's the only way I can read that. Makes sense. You know, close to Tamarkan, probably. Tamarkan could use a new province, and you know, this might benefit Tamarkan, who can vassalize him, or it might just benefit Kolek, really. But growing power unlocks additional manipulations, even more potent and treacherous, but relying on them is equally as treacherous. Yeah, because that's the thing about Sayl. He went a bit too far and paid the price for it. He also did a lot of stupid stuff, because that's who Sayl is. Mini Tzeentch, really. But yeah, you get Sayl the Faithless, Great Shaman Sorcerers, Bjork Bearstruck, Femir Noble, Marauder Bearman with Axe, Shield, and Great Weapons, Kurgan Horsemen, Dual Weapons, and Great Weapons, so you get Shock Cavalry. Interesting. What exactly counts as Shock Cavalry for Norsca? They're obviously not going to be Chaos Knights. Cursed at 10 with Runecaller, Chimera, and Dreadmaw. And then 4 regiments renowned. Alright. Okay, Grave Assembly, what exactly are those 4 regiments renowned going to be? I think that is a really big question. So yeah, there's a bunch of units in this DLC. Now, for the record, I'm perfectly fine and quite happy that they're not just adding one unit type, but they're adding variants of that unit type. So having Axe and Shield, Great Weapons. Personally, I probably would be using a lot of Axe and Shield, but it depends on how strong they are. I'm guessing they're better than Marauders, but not as good as Marauder Champions. Because Marauder Champions are a very good unit right now in the campaign and battles. So these guys are probably not going to be necessarily as good as that. And honestly, if you read the description of Marauder Bearmen, they're not wearing heavy armor. So Marauder Champions can go toe-to-toe with Chaos Warriors and win, or fight out. I think Marauder Bearmen are going to be lower tier than that, because in the lore they wear light armor, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out on that specific subject. And Bjork Bearstruck will be a bit of an interesting one. Is this confirmation that the Dogs of War has been killed? You guys let me know on that subject. Finally, we get to see a bit about the Masque of Slaanesh. Her stats, so magical attacks, armor piercing, bonuses to infantry right there, low level of armor, and also her eternal dance mechanic. So it's a Lord mechanic right there. And you do have different choices right here. So you have a casualty replenishment of plus 3%, and with tempo. How exactly tempo would work, but we can see that there's a meter right there next to it. So the Masque is constantly dancing in the lore because of how what Slaanesh did to it. And then we got different dances by the looks of it. So we got one that casualty replenishment, another one that seduce unit budget plus 40%, seduce unit cost minus 20%. And I'm guessing those on the right are different options as you fill up the meter for the dance. So we'll be a bit curious to see about that. Then we move on to the screen. This screen, it's just a flicker, but damn it, it's very, very informative. So first off, this is Monuments of the Moon. This is Lustria. This is very likely Wulfric, who's gonna start near Skeggy or in Skeggy, and we can see the new options that Norsca has. So you can have Colonize, which is taking supplies. So I'm guessing they took that idea from Khorne and just implemented it for Norsca. For some resource, you can gain some of it by raising an altar. You can gain maybe more of it by pillaging and raising a settlement. How that will work with movement range is a big question, because that's an important one for how Norsca will work. if I'm not mistaken, they have talked about naval attacks, which makes sense. This is a naval-themed DLC. But then we got the different god options with raising an altar for the Hound. And then this screen for the High Elves. Now, what we see here are the new patronage system. I think this is a Tyrion campaign by the looks of it, because we do have Tyrion right there. And we can see that we have 3 tiers to each specific seat. Illyrian patronage in this case. This is going to give you campaign movement range and then speed for the for a lord when riding a horse mount. And then just a bit more detail. So that's Illyrian. Then we also get bit more information. So holding a seat gives you favor of the Phoenix King 1 per turn, and we can see the meter there at the bottom. So that's probably something you're gonna have to fill for various reasons. But we can see like Tyrion is holding Lawfern, Alariel, weirdly enough, is holding Calador in this case. But yeah, and you apparently High Elves do need to control the provincial capitals or provinces, whatever, in order to be able to use these seats. So Slaanesh with Crix needs to be driven out. I'm not sure how I feel about it, because one of the problems High Elves do have right now in their campaigns is the issue of Wolf One. Like, basically, Wolf One is so very damn valuable. Of course, they have mentioned confederations. And if I'm not mistaken, they did mention also climate penalties as well in a campaign. Not sure what turn of a campaign this is, by the way. There are resources that whoever recorded this had, but that could just be cheats, could be later on in a campaign, could be very early on in a campaign. But yeah, that is essentially it. Looks interesting. I think there's at least a lot of interesting ideas for this specific DLC, but it's always in the details that matters. Like, what's the pacing of the campaign? How well are these things balanced and implemented? By the way, you can see over here in the screen that I'm guessing these are bearmen that Aislinn is fighting right here. So Sayl was fighting. Sayl was fighting a bunch of High Elves, and yeah, that's it. Kwasine, signing out. Stay tuned for more.